Welcome GRD 132, Typography 1 to exercise 13. In the past, this was ex11, so if you see some older video clips that see ex11, that's what this was called. But this will be ex13 for spring 23. And there will be some older parts of the video here, but I wanted to introduce it right from the beginning as it would be this spring. So what you're going to do is you're going to first of all make sure that you're logged into Replit, and this is my student account that I'm in right now because I'm going to be clicking on a shared link and I'm going to be forking it, which is like in Figma was the way you actually duplicate it to your draft. So it's the same kind of thing. So I'm going to go back to coursework and you're going to go down to Unit 10. Now in the past, this was earlier in the semester, but you're going to go to Unit 10 and you're going to go to ex13 and this link. Now you can find the link inside here too, but you can click right here. Just like Figma, this will be shared with you. So you could click on it. Now it actually opens up a new tab in Replit and it'll be in your account. So you can close this one if you want. You don't have to be here anymore. You could go here. And this is what it's going to look like. And what you're going to do first is you're going to fork it. Fork it just means duplicate it. Now how would you do that? Just look for a fork button. Just go to fork and change the name here. Instead of last name F, put your name. So put your name here and I'll put my name here. And just hit fork. And then it should look like the way it did on your last assignment. You should have a web view area over here, which you can move over. But before you move it over all the way, remember, click on this button, open it in a new tab, and that way you can preview everything. Now, when you preview this, it'll just look very generic, just like we did on the first exercise. Now, this is going to be similar stuff, so it's going to be a lot of review of the first exercise once this loads up here. Now, also over here, you're going to have index, which is all your HTML is done for you. There's an H1, there's a P tag, there's an H2, there's a P tag, H2, P tag. So it's all using that Pilsner stuff that we worked on before. Okay, here it is. I got a little error there, but then it came up. So this is what it's going to look like to start. And this is going to be your code. You're going to have an index and you're going to have a styles. And this is where you're going to put your styles here. So remember, you're going to put like body and then two curly braces, hit return, and then you might do something like background color, and then you might put like antique white to start and something like that. And you don't have to run it. You just have to go here and just refresh it. So that's the way this is going to start. Now this is ex13. The rest of the video, which I already had recorded, and it's going to be all the same thing, is going to say ex11. So don't be confused. It's the same exercise. It's just that for this semester, it's going to be called ex13, but everything else in the rest of the video will be the same. So just keep that in mind. So I'll update anything as I go through the video, and I might put little notes on just to say, oh, that's 13 rather than 11. Now just to go over some stuff that we have here, we have HTML tags. There's an opening and a closing down here. They have the /. And then there's a head tag, opening and closing. Now this stuff we don't have to worry about right now, except for this one, because this actually links to the CSS file, styles.css. Here it says styles.css, so it's linking to that. So it's kind of pointing to this file. This is where we're going to put all our styles, all our formatting are going to be in there. Instead of trying to do it within here, we're going to do it in a separate file. We're going to target H1, put it in a style, target P, and use some formatting for that. So that's what we're going to do. So this just links up to that file, so they're connected. And then we have our body, which is our main visual part of our HTML page. And then inside of there, children or descendants of body, we have an H1, which is a headline, which is this thing. That's our H1. We have paragraphs. Here's a P. Here's an H2. Here's a P. Here's an H2, here's a P. What is that? That's this thing. Here's a P, which is a paragraph. Here's an H2, which is a subheading. Here's a paragraph. Here's an H2, which is a subheading, and here's a paragraph. And you can see right now these subheadings kind of float in the middle. Everything kind of floats. There's kind of a default spacing. And we're going to get rid of that first, and then we're going to start using our own custom formatting. And we're going to use CSS to do that. And if you're unfamiliar with CSS, which you may be, you can always go to W3 Schools and you can go to tutorials and look for CSS. And it'll tell you all about CSS. It'll tell you an introduction here, what is CSS, all this kind of stuff. It'll show you the syntax. Here's the syntax that we're going to use. We're going to use a selector, which is going to select an element like an H1, like a P, like an H2, and then we're going to have a declaration. Now, typically we put these on separate lines, like the bracket will go on a line. It'll look like this down here. We'll have the target, which is P, then we'll have an opening curly brace, and then we'll put some declarations like color red. That means color the font red. And text align center. That'll mean center the text. And that's the way it'll look. So that's what's going on here. So basically there's a selector, and then inside the curly braces we're going to put one or more declarations. And then we'll have a property like color, and then a value like blue. And then we'll have a property like font size or font family, and then a value that goes with that. And that's what we're going to do. And this will target the parts of our HTML page. So these things here, that's how we target them. Now we can also use identifiers like IDs and classes, but right now we can just target these HTML elements and just say, okay, every paragraph is going to look like this. Every H2 is going to look like this. That's what we're going to do, because right now it's just very generic. Now we could start off with just something real simple. I'm going to go into my styles here, so we don't have to do anything with our HTML. We're going to go into our styles, and this is just what a comment looks like, and I'll just skip over the comment. And what I'm going to do first is target body. And I'm going to put body, and then I'll put a curly brace and hit return. And I'm going to change the background color of body. So I'm going to put background dash color. I'll put a colon, and I'll start typing antique white. We'll go with antique white to start, and I'll put a semicolon. And you could hit run here. It's not going to really do anything. And if I go here and refresh the page, the color is going to show up. And we can adjust that color later. And that's the first thing we're doing here. Also, I'm going to do something called a reset to get rid of some of these default spacing. And I'll do a global reset, and I'll do it before body. I'll hit enter here, and I'll just put an asterisk. That's like a wildcard selector. And then I'll put my curly braces. And what I'll do is I'll put margin, I'll put a colon, and I'll put 0, and then a semicolon. And then I'll put padding, and I'll put 0 and a semicolon. And a couple things I don't know if I mentioned yet. If I go to settings over here, indent size should be on 4, code intelligence should be enabled, soft wrap, everything should be okay right now. They changed the colors actually just recently, the coloring that they've done in here a little bit. So I'll see if this changes anything a little bit. But right now I'm wiping out all that. So if I put margin, colon, 0, and then always finish off everything with a semicolon, I'm going to go here and refresh, and it takes away all our space. So we're going to fix that. And then what we'll do, we'll go here in body, and let's put a margin on there. And now margin is outside. The way this works is padding is inside a particular area, and margin is outside. So we're going to go outside of kind of our body area here, and we're going to put a margin on there, and put a margin so far of, let's try like 300 pixels for now. That's a lot, but we'll use that for now. See what that looks like, and we'll refresh, and that's way too much. so let's go back. Let's go back and do margin of maybe like an inch. That would be 72 pixels would be about an inch. So let's do about 100. See how that looks. And we'll go back here and refresh. And that's good for now. That gives us a nice big kind of inch margin around here. Now, that's all around, so as we resize our screen, that's going to come in, and that's fine for now. So that sort of centers it a little bit. It keeps everything in there. And you could even do more if you want. If you want to make, 140 or something like that, that's probably fine. Again, the idea is short line lengths, so we're trying to shorten the line lengths here by doing that. So that looks okay. Now we still have to put space before these headings, a little after, all that kind of stuff. We probably want more space here. We can center this like we did on the other. We can adjust the line spacing. We can do all that kind of stuff. We can pick out nice fonts. So all that stuff we're going to do. But right now, let's adjust the spacing here of the H2s. These are H2s, so we'll do a little space before, and they call that padding top, and space below would be padding bottom. Padding top, padding bottom, and then maybe even here a little bit of padding bottom. So we'll use the same padding bottom for the headline as we do for the H2s. So we'll go back here, and we'll target the H1 first. And again, I'm putting H1, curly brace, hitting enter, and then I'll just put padding dash bottom. And this usually helps out a little bit more. I'll have to check this out because it seems like there's some kind of update here and it's not helping out as much. So I'll double check our setting here, but we'll do padding bottom and a colon and then a space. And then we'll start off with like 6 pixels for now. We use pixels. And we have to use 6px, and there's not a space in there. It should be 6px altogether. And we'll do that, and we'll see what that looks like. You see it puts a little in there. We're going to use that same amount here, and then we'll maybe put double above and see how that works. So we'll do another one for H2, curly brace, and then I'll even highlight this and copy it, this padding bottom part. And then I'll also do a padding top. Now there's ways you could do both at the same time, but for now we'll just kind of focus on this. Padding top, and maybe we'll do 12. We'll double it and see how that looks. If we need more, we'll do more. So for H1 we just have padding bottom. For H2 we have padding bottom the same amount, and for H2 we also have padding top. We'll see how that looks. And you don't have to hit run. You could just go here and do that. Now that looks okay. I could probably use even a tiny bit more. So maybe 16 top. And that's good. I think that looks good for now. So things are spaced out a little nicer. We can even adjust the paragraphs. We have to fix this too. This one down here, we'll put some space before it. We could even do something with an ID so we know that that's like the link or something. So we'll deal with that later. But as far as the line spacing in here, we might spread this out a little bit, but that's getting into the fonts a little bit, and I'd rather wait and get into the fonts a little bit later. I'm not going to worry about colors right now. I'm not going to worry about fonts right now. Just very basic stuff we did here. And, well, maybe I'll do one more thing here. I'll go to P. We'll select all the Ps. And I'll do something called line height. And typically when you start typing this, this comes up. So I have to check why some of these kind of hints aren't coming up correctly. Because it seems like the colors are a little different and they're not coming up. So we're going to do line height, line dash height, and a colon, and then a space, and I'll use a percent. And remember we said like 120% is like auto, so I'm gonna put in maybe like 140% and see what that looks like. And I'll go here and I'll refresh it, and you can see that spreads it out a little bit, and that's good. And we will take this source thing and move it down a little bit, but that spreads it out. It gives a little air in there, just like we were doing with our other one. And if we wanted to add more margin here, we can. If we want to go to our body and make it 160 all around, we could do that. We could even do it so there's more on the right and left and less on the top and bottom. But right now, that margin's going all the way around, so that's okay for now. If we want less on the top and bottom, I'll show you how this works. We'll do this and then we'll take a break. If you don't want it all the way around, if you just want it on the right and left, here's a little trick. And I'll put a comment here. And the way this works, I'll put TRBL, trouble. And then I'll highlight this. And then I'll comment this. I think this is command /. And command / turns that into a comment. It puts the slash asterisk, and then it puts the asterisk slash. So trouble, what that means is you can put top, right, bottom, left in that order. So I could go here, and I'll put spaces in here so I know that there's spaces. And on the top, maybe I only want 100. Or maybe I want 72. 72 px on the top. And I'll put a space. And on the right, I want 160. And on the bottom, I want 72. And then on the left, I want 160. And I only need one semicolon here at the end of this. So this comment doesn't really get seen, but now I'm doing 72 on the top, 160 on the right, 72 on the bottom, 160 on the left. Now let's see what that looks like. And that looks a little better. We don't have as much space on the top, but we have more on the right and left. So that looks pretty good. You know, if we stretch this out, now it still makes long line lengths if the page is stretched out, but for now, that's okay. We can even adjust the width of this, but we'll do that a little bit later. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break, and You don't even have to save it. It's already saved. So even if you got out of here and you went back and you went to your repels, you'd come back to this repel. So for whatever reason, if you went to, my repels, there it is. 11 Pilsner, I could go here and reopen it again. And I could keep this open. If this ever got closed, you can just go back here and make sure you open this thing up. That opens it in a new tab. Then when you come here, you can kind of close this up again. And in part 2, we're going to come back and we're going to do a little bit more. We're going to focus on fonts a little bit. We'll use some Google Fonts and we'll adjust the sizing a little bit. We'll focus more on the fonts themselves. So we did focus on some margins. We focused on some padding above and below these headlines, below here. And now what we'll do is we'll focus on the fonts a little bit more in part 2.